Hey guys, Brian Connolly here with another episode of the Now and Not Yet, the first one that's actually kicking off the new year. So we're actually in 2015 now, and I've been talking to you guys about, I really believe this is a year of restoration, God moving in families, seeing prodigals come home. I've been hearing some other people, men and women of God that I really admire and look up to as well, kind of saying some of the same thing. It's always good when you get that kind of confirmation and just that you know that you're hearing God's heart for this time, and that He wants to bring reconciliation and restoration to the home. But I didn't want to talk about that today as much as I wanted to talk this morning to you about an exhortation that Paul gives us in a little letter that he writes to the church in Colossae. So to this letter known as the Colossians, and it's in chapter 3, beginning in verse 1. And I was just driving into the office today thinking about what it means to guard your heart against discouragement, what it means to set your mind on things above. Paul says it this way in Philippians 4:8, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, whatever is admirable, whatever is of honor, dwell on these things. And I guess I'm starting to understand more and more, I'm talking out of experience here, how much of a battleground your mind can really be. And how one of the things that the enemy wants to do, according to 2 Corinthians 10, is he wants to build fortresses in our thinking that are contrary to the truth that's found in Christ. But we have weapons of warfare that are divinely powerful for the destruction of his fortresses. So he's trying to build things in our thought life. He's trying to sow lies into our minds and actually getting us to believe that some of the thoughts we're having are our own. And they're not. They're just fiery darts that are coming at us that he's just firing. And we want to make sure we're releasing faith in the right things and not the wrong things. Here's Paul's exhortation, and I just hope and pray that somebody needs to hear this today. Paul writes, he says in verse 1, Colossians 3, he says, therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ. So the reason why he's saying therefore is because he just got done laying out there in Colossians 2, in Colossians 1, who Jesus is, the fact that you are seated with him, the fact that in him you're made complete and you've become this new creation. So he says, basically, in light of what I'm saying, says, therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, which you have, his encouragement to us is simply this: keep seeking the things above. I love that language. Where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Now listen to who else is seated there. Set your mind on the things above, not on the things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. So if Christ is there and you're seeking the things above, you're also meditating on where your life is found and where your life is hidden as well. You have this dual citizenship going on where you're already, according to Ephesians, you're seated in heavenly places, and according to Philippians, you're citizens of heaven. So this is what we're learning to do. This is what Paul's telling us to do. If you're setting your mind on the things of earth, all you're going to get is the wisdom that comes from the things that are on the earth. So what's on the earth? Well, your circumstances, the way people see, the way that you're treated, things that you're walking through, things that lead to discouragement, things that lead to depression, things that lead to stealing of your joy and your peace. And Paul is saying, don't do that. Don't think the way that other men think. Don't be just mere men. Set your mind at a place, on a place where you're actually seated. Have this mind, have the mind of Christ that he tells us that we already have in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. But we want to set our mind there. We want to camp on this thing called the good news. We want to camp and just learn to think and to see differently. And it does when we learn to meditate on heavenly things, not what we're walking through. Paul also encourages us in 2 Corinthians. He says, hey guys, we're not walking by what we see. We're walking by faith. This is where rubber meets the road. You and I have a choice every day. I'm guilty of it. I fall short in this area sometimes, where you can either meditate on what you're walking through and why you're walking through it, or your mind can rest assured in the fact my life's hid in him. There's been good news preached to me. My sins have been washed away. I'm dead. I'm alive in him. I've got a new father, and he's fathering me into a greater reality. So be encouraged, guys. Don't set your mind on what you're walking through, things that are on the earth. Set your mind on things above. Overcome discouragement by meditating on the truth. All right? So, hey, let's have an awesome new year. I'm ready for 2015. God's going to do some awesome things. We'll talk to you next week.